Hi, you're listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction. We're your hosts, Amber and Dan. Read the episode's book first if you don't want any spoilers, because we're full of them.
We also talk about sensitive topics. This is a horror podcast after all, and we swear a lot. Well, Amber does. Find any trigger warnings in our episode notes. We're happy you're joining us, and enjoy the show. So, Amber, what's the color of pain anyway?
Vermilion.
And so it is in the book we're talking about today, called Such Lovely Skin by Tatiana Schlote-Bonne. And this is a YA horror book, which you recommended.
Yes, our first YA. I actually recently read this for a book club that I'm in called Death by TBR, which is a fun little group of people. I enjoy them a lot. And we read this book a couple months ago, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun read. I was really excited about video games in a horror novel, and so I thought it could be a good thing to try out in our podcast.
Now, do you know if the book group usually talks about, is YA horror kind of a new thing, or is it often...
Oh, yes. It's usually just horror.
Like adult horror?
Adult horror, yes.
Okay. All right, so a little bit about the author. This is her debut novel. She has a forthcoming adult horror novel called The Mean Ones, which is coming out in September of 2025.
It has a cool looking cover, too. It's like a person's head getting ripped in half with horns coming out.
Beautiful. It kind of, like the shape of it kind of reminds me of Only the Good Indians, just because it has horns, I guess. She has an MFA from the nonfiction writing program at the University of Iowa. And when she's not writing, she's either gaming, lifting heavy weights, or teaching people how to lift heavy weights. She's the proud parent of 2 cats, Momo and Yuri.
I love it. I wonder what kind of cats they are.
Probably cuties.
Cutie kitties.
So, yeah, she sounds cool. I like gaming. I like lifting medium weights. And
medium weights. And I love cats, so she's right up our alley. She also has really cool, large, curly hair, which I also have, so that's a little
kind of like I see you there trait that you share.
I guess.
I don't know.
I'm just always impressed when I see people who can manage their curly hair well.
Should we get right into the summary of the book? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, so an evil video game, a lying Twitch streamer, a demon hungry for her secrets. Viv isn't known for telling the truth, but she's not lying about having an evil doppelganger either. After spending the summer racked with guilt about causing the accident that killed her little sister, ambitious gamer and chronic liar Viv returns to Twitch streaming. She never told her parents the truth about the accident, but she hopes that making it big and streaming and giving the money to them is penance enough for her mistakes. The weekend before school starts, her senior year in high school, Viv finds the perfect horror game to make her Twitch comeback, and during an offline practice run, an NPC asks her to share a secret. That's a non-player character for you noobs. She decides to tell them the truth about her sister's death, since a game could never share her secret. In doing so, she accidentally welcomes a demonic mimic into her life. No one believes her when she tells them about her evil doppelganger. She has lied to get her best friend's sympathy and has spread rumors for attention, so why should anyone trust her now? The only person who believes her is Ash, a social outcast and Satanist whom Viv once bullied. In trying to clear her name and kill the mimic, Viv discovers that her lives have hurt people who never deserved it, herself included.
Sounds very YA.
Yeah, there's a lot of growing and discovery in the book, which isn't a bad thing.
But the best part about the book is that there's video games in it.
It does have video games. Okay, let's go straight to it. How did it handle video games?
It handled video games poorly and well.
I'm guessing it started out well, is how you thought? Because that's kind of where I'm thinking. Like it got deep into the game early on, and then it dropped off.
Yes, as far as the game itself that she plays a handful of games, but the game that creates this awful situation for her starts out really, really good. I would totally watch this stream.
But you don't watch any streams.
No, I have in the past.
Okay.
I don't really anymore. When Twitch was new, I did a little bit, but I don't know. If I'm going to watch anyone play video games, it's you. And because then I can tell you what to do.
Yep.
So I thought it started out well. She did everything you would do in a video game, and it was well designed, like interesting sounding and scary. And then it kind of just petered off.
It sounds like a game that was the demo for, I think, Silent Hill, and it had like a different name, and it was just a demo for a while, and then it was taken down from the PlayStation Store. And I think it's still on our hard drive. And basically, it's like a hallway walking game.
Hallway walking simulator?
Yeah. So in this book, the game that she's playing is called Locked In, an escape room horror game. And the way she comes across it is she's like, okay, I've been depressed about my little sister's death all summer. I got to like get back to what I love. And she's looking for a game. And it's not just like, what's the biggest horror game out there? Like, she's very specifically a horror gamer. She wants to find something, you know, a little more niche, independent that would make her channel stand out. So she's been getting all these spam emails about like, play this game, Locked In, an escape room horror game, play it, so that she thinks it's just probably a crappy indie horror game. But then she decides to load it up because what the heck.
So before we talk about the game itself, I want to talk about streaming on Twitch, because that's like a real thing that people do these days. And I thought it was really interesting to implement that in the book. It made it really modern feeling in a way that a lot of other books don't do. And it can also eventually age it. Some of the games she mentions are popular games now. So it's interesting because if you put those kind of details in a book, right now it feels fresh and new and up to date. But will this book be as interesting in 10 years? You know, will Twitch still be around? Or will there be a new platform? Those kind of things are an interesting thing to think about for authors.
I've definitely read like writing advice about don't too clearly date or mention topical subjects in a book. And
but to interrupt you and tie into a previous author, Stephen King did that with his book 11/22/63. So in some cases, you definitely can put a very specific date on something.
True. I guess what I thought was interesting is I've definitely read modern books that kind of subdue our ultra digital existence. Like it'll be like they message the friend, or they contact, like we know they can contact each other without issue. But I feel like a lot of the time that stuff is pushed under the main story. And I feel like partly because the focus is on the story and they don't want it to be too dated, where it was kind of fun to read a book that was like, this is in the now. And I don't know if, you know, if in 10 years, maybe it reads a little dated, I think that's okay. It was fun to just be like, oh yeah, this is stuff that I don't do, but is going on in our lives.
I still play some of the games she mentioned. And that also brings up another topic that I wanted to touch on, which is technology demons, because we saw that with movies back in the early 2000s, late 90s, with internet and DVDs and film and stuff. So, for example, Ringu or Pulse were two movies that came out around the turn of the century. Oh God, that makes me feel so old.
God. Turn of the century, Jesus. Horse are like cart and horse.
Turn of the millennia, to be more exact. But those movies were very heavily focused on, at the time, modern technology. As a brief reminder, Ringu was about passing around a VHS that if you watched it, you would get killed by the entity living in the tape unless you pass it on to someone else.
And you know, we just watched that, and like, I don't know, a few months ago.
Yeah. And
none of that stuff bothered me. Like, oh, VHS, no one uses that anymore. If anything, what seemed outdated was like the pacing of the story. It definitely felt like, oh, horror has gotten a lot more complex over the last 20 years.
And it's fun too, because then you get the nostalgia of it. Like, oh my gosh, I remember using VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been so long. But I agree. It can still hold up.
We should talk a little bit about the game itself and the demon to give some context about, you know, kind of the inciting incident of the whole thing.
Good idea.
So she loads up this game that she's got all this spam email about. And it's basically like she's a character in a hallway, and it's creepy and gross and dark. And there's like fingernails in the walls where they've been scratching at the wallpaper. And she's in a house or an apartment. I forget which one.
I think it's a decrepit house.
But basically she has to like go explore the house to find out what's going on here. She actually gets instructions in the beginning. It's like, you are a journalist and must find your way out.
So when she starts up the game, it has a title screen and it says in cool font in the book, introducing Locked In, an escape room horror game. Play only if you dare to face your darkest fears. And then the game's cover art shows a cartoon girl crouched in a hallway corner, her eyelids and mouth sewn shut. Totally my vibe. I click the link to the website, chewing my thumbnail as the page loads. A few comments on the site call the game edgy and scary and claustrophobic, possibly by the programmer themselves. True or not, edgy and claustrophobic are my jam. And even if the game sucks, I can just rip on it with my fans, like I'm the gamer version of Tom Servo in an MST3K episode.
That one went over my head.
That's Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, of course. Yeah, well, I didn't watch that.
Then she goes on to talk about her comfort foods of gaming, which is The Sims, Skyrim, and Fallout New Vegas. And that kind of thing just grabbed me right away. I've played all those. I love all those games. New
they
Vegas
are like very comfortable, just like your happy place.
Yes, New Vegas is my favorite Fallout game. On the previous page, she mentioned Baldur's Gate 3 and League of Legends. And just right off the bat, I'm like, ooh, name dropping video games. I'm in love with this book.
That's like when we did Punk Rock Ghost Story and I got all the name drop band names.
And
it's just
for
fun.
me with We Sold Our Souls.
Yeah. It sets off like a little ding in your dopamine receptors or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's smart, right? Because you're hooking people who are interested in that kind of thing right off the bat. It's the hook. But this isn't, I don't think it's meant to be the hook for the book, but it worked on me.
Yeah. Well, her character is in this like dilapidated house that she's exploring, and it's basically go check in your drawer in the bedroom. Like she has no idea what's supposed to happen except that it's a horror game, and kind of looks around and it says find batteries for your flashlight, a very, very first level video game instruction to receive. So she goes and finds the batteries and eventually ends up opening up a room with a figure in it that's just there and creepy, and eventually goes up to her and asks, tell me a secret, right?
So that actually reminds me of video games that we've played in the past, back when we used to attempt to play horror games.
I don't know. We got, I think, most of the way through Condemned until
Did we?
my character got stuck in a basement.
Oh no. Is that the part with the mannequins?
No, this is different.
That was past that. Okay. I do remember that part has stuck with me forever. So is it the original Condemned game?
I think so, yeah. This was like for the original Xbox, right?
Yeah, I think so. This is way, way back. At one point in the game, you're in a mall and you have to go through one of the shops or something. And there's a bunch of mannequins in the room just strewn about, as you do when you're not using them, I suppose. And I can't remember if this was just a feature in the room or if it was the entire game, but the lights flickered out and it was pure darkness. And then they'd flicker on and the mannequins, you're like, wait, did they move? And then it does it again and again. And eventually like they keep moving closer and closer to you. And at the very end, you're totally encircled by them. And it just freaked me out. And this was 10 years ago, if not more.
Yeah, about then.
Yeah, okay. And
actually, this was when we were living in El Cerrito, so like 15 to 20 years ago.
God damn it. Okay. So this was, a long time ago. And I feel like it was early in the life of the trope of the lights turning off and things moving in the darkness, or at least in my experience. So this was one of the first times that I really, really got freaked out by that. Oh,
yeah, we've definitely, it is a trope in horror. You look away from something and look back and it's closer, but I don't know if this was one of our first instances of it or if it was just really well done because it scared the hell out of us.
It might have just been really well done.
And we also did it properly. We'd play at night with the lights turned off. The basement part I mentioned before is kind of funny. So your character's a detective and you're trying to figure stuff out. You have to go into this basement of a super creepy house. And I think the way the game worked was that like every 2 or 3 minutes, somebody would come screaming, running up behind your character. And I think it was set so however long you were in the basement.
Weren't they clowns or something?
I don't no, they were just like homeless people.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God.
Yeah,
wow.
Just like crazed homeless people. So there's probably something there. But I mean, it was still really scary. But the way this like particular scene was, is you had to go in the basement and find some, I don't know, do detective work, find some items, discover some things where you needed to focus on what you were doing to get out of there. And it seemed like there was a timer for, okay, every 2 minutes or whatever it is, we'll send a screaming homeless person behind them to scare them.
With
and even
a baseball bat.
Yeah. And yeah, they'd have like crowbars and baseball bats. And even though I knew that's what the game was doing, there was a long enough timer between enemies coming screaming at you that it just scared the crap out of me every time, because I'd be like reading a journal entry here and then, get cracked in the head with a baseball bat. So it was like the interactive element of it makes it so much scarier for me.
Well, and that also brings up the thing that scares me the most. I'm very skittish and I'm constantly being scared anytime anyone walks in a room, even if I know they're coming. If I can't hear them, I will probably scream because that's just what I do. But a lot of that anxiety comes from the anticipation of it happening, but it not actually happening yet. I used to jump back in California, all you weirdos who pump your own gas. We don't do that in Oregon. But when I would pump my gas, just waiting for the timer or the, whatever auto.
The like click when it's full?
Yes, the auto
that
turn
scared
off.
You? Or the anticipation of it?
I would jump every single time.
Yeah,
every
you
time.
would.
It just is.
She also jumps every single time a champagne bottle is opened, which is really fun.
I prefer to leave the room. I hate that. So that's why you play the video games and I watch.
Yeah, it was all anticipation. It was interesting because I could tell myself, all right, every couple minutes an enemy's going to come at you. Just deal with it. But not knowing exactly how long it would be until the next one came while trying to do detective things. That suspense was just like too much for me. I think that character's probably still in the basement in some kind of save file hell.
Oh, God, there's a horror game for you.
I've also tried to play some of the Outlast games, which are, I think it's typically like a journalist goes to a creepy place. At least the first one is. The first game is a journalist going to a spooky mansion and doing stuff. And then I just tried to play one a few weeks ago called The Bunker. You watched me start it where...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like World War One, and you like go fall into a ditch and, you have to do scary ghost World War One stuff.
I was so enjoying that. Why did you stop?
It's too scary. No, that wasn't too scary. I mean, it was too scary because all these games are just so dark so you can't see shit. And then something scary happens and it scares the crap out of you. But it's also because you would save... I think it's like Resident Evil where you save on a typewriter ribbon or something like that.
Oh, so you'd have to be in a specific location.
Yeah, I saved and then I did a bunch of stuff and then I died and then I'd have to do all that stuff over again. Yeah. And I think it's just the tension of games like that, of not knowing where the jump scare is and the fact that I have to move the character. It's completely different than a book or a movie. The fact that I have to push forward into the dark hallway makes it like unbearable for me.
So would you consider Resident Evil a horror game?
I mean, action horror.
Yeah.
A game like that I could easily play.
Yeah, same.
Those are cool.
That's why I was asking, because we beat at least one or two of those, if not more.
Yeah. I mean, they're super creepy. And they did a really cool remake of 4 in the last few years.
Is that the one where you could get the disco outfits?
No, I think that was 5. The one we played together that had co-op. That was cool. Yeah, that was not scary at all, but it was so fun.
And then we got those like shiny gold costumes or whatever. That was amazing. Yeah, I enjoy the Resident Evil games, but I don't really consider them scary. So there's that. But I do see relatively frequently on my Instagram account, it's a guy who's streaming on Twitch, I would assume, makes clips of the scary parts and posts them on Instagram, and I watch them. They are really good. And it's funny because, he gets scared, jumps out of his seat or falls back out of his seat sometimes and screams, and it's hilarious and also scary. That's a good segue back into our book and how Viv is streaming this game, but she doesn't stream the game right away, right? She does a practice
Yeah,
run.
she's just checking it out, see if this is something she's really ready to do.
Yeah, so she does a test run and just does the first area up to the point where it asks her to share a secret.
And she's like narrating it out loud while she's playing alone because she hasn't streamed in a while. So I liked that touch.
Yeah, that seems realistic. So she says to herself, "Ooh, guys, you hear that?" I say to my imagined streamer audience, "It wants a secret. A dark secret. Oh, hear that, guys?" I follow up with my imaginary audience. A dark secret. And then she ends up actually typing out her deepest, darkest secret, which I would never do.
Yeah, right?
I mean, I don't think I really have.
I hope not. Not like this one.
No,
this one's pretty bad.
Definitely not. But I would just make something up like, oh, I don't know. I threw something away I wasn't supposed to. I don't know. I can't even think of anything. But, I told my child it was his bedtime, and it wasn't his bedtime because I was tired of him. That's the kind of thing I would say. But she actually tells her deepest, darkest secret, and then she ends up leaving to go to some party. Leaves the party early, comes home, streams the game, and then it doesn't ask her that again. She's like, "Oh, that's weird." And some of the details are different. And she's like, "Well, that's really weird." So right away, you get the sense like, okay, there's something off about this game. She's just playing it off. It's like, this is really well made for an indie game. The fact that they're able to change stuff like that's so unusual. But we all know that's bullshit. Like, it's obviously possessed by a demon, girl. Come on.
Duh.
So then we get a little bit of an insight to her personality and how she is online and streaming, and she's looking to like make it big in streaming too. It sounds like she had some popularity. That's her goal.
Yeah, before the accident. So she wants to like make money, and
I think she was in like the top 100 streamers, I think. And then her goal is to get in like the top 10.
To help pay her parents' mortgage, do all these things that'll make her feel less guilty about
because,
her sister.
Making money just fixes everything.
I mean, it helps with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but not guilt.
that I don't know about. All right, so that's kind of like the context of where everything starts. So she tells the demon her secret, and that somehow activates, I don't know, the demon possessing her. Later on, she then has a dream where she's like paralyzed in bed and awake, and then like this creepy shadow demon is like reaching out to her and presses its claws into her skin and like leaves a puncture wound.
What's that called when you're like sleep paralysis?
Yeah, something like that.
Is that what it's called?
It sounds terrifying.
It sounds so terrifying, and everything I've heard about it, it is actually very terrifying. So you don't even need demons, and it's already freaky.
Yeah, this instigates a mimic in her life who basically goes around and looks and acts like her. Well, I guess maybe doesn't act like her, but it looks and acts enough like her that people probably just think she's having a weird day.
Well, it knows everything. And I don't really understand that, how it gets all of her memories on top of being able to copy her body. It's a doppelganger of her, but it's a little unclear, at least to me, as to like how it is pretty much an exact copy of her, but the evil version. But yeah, it's evil, and it messes with her, and it does some pretty fucked up things to her.
It came from a video game. Maybe it had a save file of her memories.
Oh, clever. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. So maybe we could talk a little bit about how this is clearly a young adult novel, because this demon comes out based on her admitting to the accident that led to her sister's death that she has not told anybody. So basically, her little sister died of, should I say? I don't know. It's like towards the end, or should I not give that away?
Nah, that's not.
Okay.
She's watching her little sister, and little sister dies. It goes back and forth in Viv's mind of saying it was an accident and saying she killed her sister. So it's a little unclear what happened. And throughout the book, it is revealed to us. And she's kept the secret, and we will too, in case you haven't read this yet and you'd like to, of what exactly happened to her little sister, Riley.
This brings up something that I'm kind of conflicted about. So on the one hand, it uses this pacing element where like she thinks about the day she was babysitting her younger sister when she died. And each time she goes back to thinking about that day, we get a little bit more information about what actually went on that day. So you have
and chronologically. So it's like we start out with they're together and then they do this and then they move on to the next thing. And that's just like every time she has a flashback or a thought about it, it's almost like a whole nother story is cut into pieces and given to us in small portions.
Now, one of the things I liked about it compared to The Shining is that in The Shining, one of my criticisms was that we kept getting watch the boiler or like come take your medicine. We had these little scenes of things that were about to happen, but it was always the same.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Yes. Foreshadowing. The foreshadowing, even though like these are flashbacks, I felt like it was kind of similar, but in the foreshadowing of The Shining, it rarely ever added new information. It was just repeated information, where this was a little bit more interesting because every time she went back and thought about that day, we would get new pieces of information to kind of unravel the mystery of what really happened. But at the same time, it kind of bothers me, the whole idea of a narrator of a story withholding information from the reader.
But isn't that a lot of what a book is? I mean, there's the climax towards the end. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Fiction is all about withholding information, right? But it just seems more like she has the information in her head and could tell us the whole day, which would kind of ruin the structure of the story. But
it seems odd that she thinks about it in this chronological. It feels more like she's not thinking about the events, even though it's written in that way. It's written in the way that makes you think that she is thinking back into the past about that day. But there's no way that in doing so, she would think chronologically about the events like that. Like she would think about exactly what happened, the last little bit, and she would just be replaying that in her mind the whole time. So to have us be strung along, it keeps you reading because you want to know what happens in those bits. I think the book is interesting even without that flashback part. It kept me wanting to read, but those build the tension of, well, what actually happened? Like, I can't wait to hear the true cause of Riley's death.
That might be a young adult thing because of just like the way that the information is given out. It's like a little bit at a time, but is also repeating some of the previous information. So as a younger reader, it really drives in what happened and solidifies it by repeating it. So part of me wonders too,
there's a lot more hand-holding by the author. Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. I won't say that it's bad, but it's definitely a little, clock is ticking. Let's just tell us what happened. I can,
Yeah. And it seems like we have this really cool opening of her being a streamer and getting back into streaming. Part of the premise in the beginning of the story is that they're about to go into their senior year of high school and there's going to be a big last summer weekend party. And she shows up and she talks a little bit about how she's half Japanese and how her best friend Brianna is Black, and a little bit about like what that's like living in a wealthy, mostly white neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think too, with the name of the book, it's called Such Lovely Skin. So I was kind of hoping for a little bit of, I guess, commentary there on what it's like living, what
it's like to be her and her best friend.
Yeah. What it's like to be living in, an other world, or, just that kind of, I don't know if it's tension, but the dynamic of not being white in a mostly white area, right?
It's actually the second line of the book. The book opens with, I lie in bed editing my Twitch bio on my phone. Half Japanese, half elf. She, her, part-time witch, full-time streamer, total screw up, somebody kill me, please. So she says right off the bat that she's half Japanese.
Yeah, and it's called Such Lovely Skin, so that kind of got my head thinking along with that, like, oh, this is going to be a little bit about some racial dynamics. And I mean, not to say that it should have gone there, but that's kind of dropped after the initial party where she talks a little bit about it, and then it's more about the skin of the doppelganger. But I thought
that they've mimicked her, yes.
I guess there's a part of me that thinks a book can be a little bit better by having some of those social dynamics that
make it more of an onion where there are layers.
Right. But then also, is that me as a white guy wanting to exploit the minority experience? You know, like, hey, she mentioned she's half Japanese. Why doesn't she talk about racial conflict, right?
She does on occasion, and it is in a very cringe way. She talks about how guys assume because she's Asian that she's tight. It's even awkward to bring it up. So I think that in a way that covers it, you can drone on about it and drill it in. She does bring that up, and it's awkward to read, and it's even more awkward to talk about, but it is there. But I agree, it's definitely, for it being the second line of the book, pointing out her mixed race heritage, it seemed ignored.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar with the gaming itself. She does game a few more times, but it really feels like the book opens up with her streaming and getting into the game so that the mimic could come out.
Yeah, and listing a bunch of games she plays and likes. And I thought it was going to be like tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, where it was just constant chatter about video games. And it's not. It's more about constant chatter about her wanting to be popular on Twitch and what it's like for her, how her perception of herself is all constantly going back to her social media personality or persona, and how that affects her relationships with other people. And that's pretty much the theme of the book.
Yeah, so her mimic will do things like sent her best friend's boyfriend like sexy pictures of herself, or started a stream wearing a bikini top, doing things that she doesn't do or have any memories of doing that either frustrate other people or, you know, entice them in ways that she wouldn't normally do. So there's definitely something going on here between, I don't know, the id of her. Maybe that's not even it, because I don't think she wanted to send those sexy pictures to Eric, but the doppelganger committing these more extreme acts in order to get ends that she does think about.
But also it's a commentary, I think, on women and society and the expectations and what sells, because she's trying to get her Twitch persona back by doing what she normally does, which is wearing her cute little hat and dressing like a normal person, nothing special. When her doppelganger goes on in a bikini, she's got a ton of viewers. And it's like, wow, so what's selling? Her personality and her gaming, or the fact that she's half naked? There's definitely room for that commentary in the gaming world.
One of her ardent viewers is named Bobbit Worm, who we never actually meet, but I think is kind of like a red herring as somebody who could be doing these bad things, because it's essentially just like an older, I think she says 40s, some guy in his 40s, which it's...
What a creep.
That would be like me watching...
Who plays video games in their 40s?
Yeah, who does that? Grow up.
I know where you're going with that. He's
like the creepy follower,
the symbol of the male gaze on this young girl, this old guy watching her and just being creepy about it, and constantly sending her emojis and being like all cute
XXX, and like
she's like, oh, gross.
But she also doesn't block him or kick him out. She is like, oh, just, you know,
just ignore that male gaze. Minimally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something that you have to navigate as a young woman. It goes away the older you get, which I guess is a nice thing in like a weird twisted way. But being a woman, especially putting yourself out there online, you're going to get a lot of weirdos. And I think that there's just the one in this book, which is being very generous, but it's important to be in there as well.
Yeah, I think that stands in for just like the creepy internet
80%
people.
of the internet? No, maybe not 80%, maybe 90. Anyway.
So they have the mimic coming out of the video game, but at first we don't know that's what it is. So that's why like Bobbit Worm is like, is it this weird random follower? Could he be doing these things that are messing with your life? Or is it this guy from school named Ash, who is a outcast Satanist, and
he listens to metal?
Yeah. And like, so his story is that his dad was drunk driving and hit and killed 2 nurses and then is in prison. And his son, Ash, has to deal with all this stuff happening.
And he's ostracized, as you do in high school, right?
Well, at first, everyone feels really bad for him. They're like, we can't believe this thing happened to you. But then he ends up putting pentagrams all over his clothes and becomes full-on stoner Satanist. Then the ostracization. And then the ostracization really starts compiling because not only did this tragic thing happen to him, but he also dresses like an outcast.
And I said he listens to metal, but he actually doesn't. Doesn't he listen? I think he listens to
he listens to like new metal. No, he listens to like, I think they mentioned Korn and Slayer. Maybe Slayer's not new metal.
Slayer's not new metal.
Well,
dude.
I don't know. Metal for people who are like, what is metal? And they listen to the top 5 bands.
So on his car, he has a Powered by Satan bumper sticker, which I love. I think that's cute. And in his bedroom, it's really dark and his windows are shielded with blackout curtains. And he's got Slayer, Korn, and 9 Inch Nails poster.
Told you Slayer was in there.
Yeah.
So that's cute. That's totally like a high school metalhead, right? I mean,
yeah,
the radio metal.
I listened to all those bands in high school, but it was also the early aughts, I don't know. I actually don't know if that's still the go-to metal bands for high schoolers, but maybe they are.
So this character is definitely like, I should back up and first say that Viv is also guilty in his ostracization.
Also, she is the worst.
I mean, yeah, she's a huge part of it, but he also dresses the part too. He doesn't really help himself.
Oh, therefore, if you wear black, you're asking for it.
I mean, he's like a hot topic Satanist. I would probably ostracize him too, honestly.
Wow. So Dan was clearly a bully.
Oh yeah, definitely. Where was I going with that?
I married this.
I'm a nice guy.
Metalhead hating.
Are you calling me prejudiced?
40-year-old video game playing.
Keep digging. So let's see. She spreads 2 rumors about him that are pretty bad. She does like an online quiz while streaming. That's who's the most likely to become school shooter and puts his name in there. Which is really fucked up.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because he says that he ended up getting pulled into the office and they check his backpack and stuff because they actually were worried that he might be a school shooter. And it doesn't even faze her. And also like, oh my God, who jokes about that?
Yeah, that's like
I
huge.
would not joke about that in high school. That was too real at that point for.
And then she's also seen him pick up opossums, and so she has spread the rumor that he picks up opossums or possums.
You can say either, actually.
Okay. Oh, okay. Do they say opossum in the book or I don't know.
It's a regional thing.
Doesn't matter.
It's a possum or a possum. It's one of those weird words.
But yeah, he like picks them up, and she started the rumor that he's picking up dead ones and putting them in his bag to conduct satanic rituals. What actually ends up happening, I won't tell you. It's the exact opposite and makes you go, oh, he's a good guy. But he's very clearly a character who... Wait, what did you find out about possums and opossums?
I'm wrong.
They're different animals?
They are different animals.
Oh, I thought I learned something new. I guess I'm unlearning something new.
You are learning something new, but something else. So an opossum is in North and South America. A possum is in Australia.
So this is a possum.
I thought it was just people pronounced it. So I've been pronouncing it right, and other people are wrong. Because so many people say possum, and I say opossum, and I thought it was just one of those weird things I say. But I was right.
So this is possums.
People who made fun of me for saying opossums were wrong. A possum with an O.
Possums are Australian.
In Australia.
A possum. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. Well, there we go. But he's not taking dead opossums off the road and stuffing them in his backpack for satanic rituals. He's actually doing something much nicer. My point being that he is a character who is very much like, let's show the reader not to be like Dan and judge Hot Topic Satanists.
And what is he doing with these opossums?
Well, his father, who's in jail for hitting 2 nurses while drunk driving, actually taught him to look into their pouches for babies when you spotted opossums.
baby opossum.
Maybe it was specifically like check dead opossums. I think they are dead.
I think it was because he got hit by cars and he was like, check them for babies. So that the babies don't die. Which to me is very YA.
Yeah, it goes from like a Satanist to a baby saver.
Yes, exactly. Like, ew, he's such a weirdo to, oh my God, that's so sweet.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I'm
not saying it's a bad thing. Yeah. I'm just doing the intense, because
that's sort of the effect going for, right? Mm-hmm. And I struggled a little bit with this book with those kind of things until about halfway through. I was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm a teenager, or I don't know, like read it as YA, right?
You're just getting creepier and creepier the more we talk about this book.
Wait, what did I say?
You're going to pretend to be a teenager.
A 40-year-old teenager. Well, I don't know, like putting my mindset somewhere where I haven't read decades worth of books, and I don't know, being led along a character who appears as unsavory but then becomes a good person could be important to someone who reads this at the appropriate age.
Well, and that's one of the main themes that you get in YA horror is self-discovery and learning your identity as a person, and also understanding how your actions affect other people. Because when you're young, you don't think about other people as much as you do when you're older. And I will 100% admit that that's true with me. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure most teenagers are like that. Anyway, so that's a theme that is very common in YA and may even be expected in many cases.
Oh, like the character that you judge too quickly?
Well, and yeah, or the main character who clearly has flaws and is self-centered and then realizes, oh, I'm being a jerk. Now I'm going to be nice to people. And because it's YA, it's got that happily ever after. Oh, everyone forgives me. And
wait, are you saying that young adults are self-centered?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
No.
Yes. Were you selfless as a teenager?
Absolutely selfless.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
Only thought of the needs of others. Although I definitely didn't ever accuse anyone or suggest anyone was a school shooter. She also later in the book gets called into the office for making another school threat, saying that one of the characters in the book has pipe bombs or explosives in his backpack, right?
No.
No? Is that a little different?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's her doppelganger who says she is going to do that.
That's right.
And it's through a text chain with her best friend that she then posts online. And she's like, I never sent those texts. And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm also kind of well, really, adults? Good job adulting. You really think a teenager is going to do that and then post it online and then deny it like that? I don't know. It just seemed a little too good to be true. But that's how she gets her best friend, Brianna, back on her side after the whole boyfriend sexy picture incident. She's like, oh, you didn't send those texts. And no one thinks to share their text chains with the adults to prove that it's not true. But, again, YA, we've got some leeway here and we don't trust adults and yada, yada. But
also she does this. So she makes this huge ordeal by, I guess the Mimic did create this huge ordeal of a possible attack at a school. And then her parents just let her keep going out, which I guess is to keep the movie, keep the book moving along. Because if she was just grounded, it might come to a dead stop. But her excuse after all this happening, and her dad's job is in jeopardy because he runs his own business. And so when people are your daughter, threatened to school.
She also accuses him, or her doppelganger accuses him of inappropriate conduct.
Yeah, and the police come over and all this,
and they just arrest him. It's a little
all this
grandiose.
Crazy stuff happens, and then she's just like, "Mom, for me to get out of my head, I need to go hang out with my friends." And they're like, "All right, you can go hang out with your friends." So
her parents are millennial parents. Isn't that the joke totally. About our generation is we're too soft now? It's oh, honey, let's talk about it. I don't want to actually punish you, right? Isn't that the thing?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
So she just continues on her way after doing these horrific things.
We are those old people now.
Yeah, I guess we are.
That whole parenting idea brings me to a question that I have about the book, something that I didn't like. And I don't know if I'm having like a okay boomer, okay millennial moment, but I thought that Viv was really shallow. She only seems to care about her TikTok persona. She uses Ash and has him pretend to be her boyfriend.
To attract the mimic is their plan.
Yeah, but they stream on.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't have to do that. I don't know. She's still worried about that. It's all she seems to care about. And it's constantly brought up like, oh, you just care about your streaming persona and stuff. And I agree. I think she does. But like her friends just just hang around and they forgive her. And her friend Brianna is like mad at her for the sexy picture thing, but it's like, well, everything else is fine. And Ash is like, well, I forgive you for calling me a school shooter. And I'm like, fuck this girl. What are you talking about? And like, am I just a millennial and I don't get the online presence thing and like how important it is to young people these days? Or is she really just a shitty person and they should say, fuck you, we're out, and leave her to her doppelganger? I don't know. But anyway, I hope it's the latter, because
that it's you? That it's your fault?
Well, no, that they should have just said fuck you, because who cares about your online persona?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe today that really is that important. I don't know. Just a thought. Just an old lady thought.
Okay, millennial.
Go home. Do some yoga. Have some avocado toast.
Keep going. Doom scroll.
Go back to your tiny
Every
apartment.
generation doom scrolls now. This probably affects all of us.
Yeah. Even my 6-year-old.
Speaking of our 6-year-old, at what point, I mean, we can't really tell this far into the future, but like, what age do you think this book would be good for?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Not a 6-year-old.
No. I mean, I'd be really impressed if you read it.
So I have this weird thing where I don't really understand how to react, what to expect, or any of those other things that you do with young people if they're older than my child. I'm like, you're either an adult, and I know how to interact with people probably like 10-ish years younger than me. It's like successfully. Like I have friends who are about 10 years younger than me and they're my friends, so I think I'm doing okay. But I don't know, like a teenager, oh man. Throw my hands up. I have no fucking idea. It's hard. I want to say like a tween, maybe.
Yeah, it seems like that.
But I think the reason I hesitate is because I don't think there was a strong enough lesson about the negative effects of streaming, of like having that online persona and having that take over your life. I feel like the lesson here was, oh, you should admit when you do something wrong, like accidentally kill your sister or whatever, like.
Yeah, the whole thing is turning around her saying that out loud. What happened? It's
revolved around her learning how to deal with her guilt and admit that she was wrong and search for forgiveness and be honest. There's no repercussions about throwing her friends under the bus to become an online celebrity. So that's why I hesitate about giving this to younger YA readers.
Yeah. And like you said, Ash, when he finds out about her doing the school shooter quiz online, he just kind of like, it's cool. I get it. He's like
mad at her for a while and just doesn't talk to her. And then she kind of apologizes. And then he's like, it's okay. I understand. It's like, what? The fuck?
That was really fucked up.
You should not understand. She fucking owes you, dude. Like, she should have to, like, at least admit to the whole school, like, hey, this guy's not a fucking asshole. Like, you know, just, I don't know. It just seems so, it's like what you would want to happen if you were Viv. Like, it's like, that was like the best case scenario for dealing with it. And that's not really reality. I felt that it needed more of a gut punch, or she needed to be more, not remorseful, but she needed to have more consequences for her actions. And I feel like that was lacking.
Yeah, I get that.
What about you? So I guess, okay, I didn't actually answer your question.
That's fine.
So I don't know. I'd say like, oh, man, I'm trying to remember like what I was like in high school. Like 16, 17. It feels kind of like old, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I was just a kid, but I don't
maybe
know.
not 13.
I have no idea.
I don't remember. I mean, what grade are you in when you're 13? Like
8th grade?
Yeah, about there?
7th to 8th, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you go into high school, I think, starting at 14 or 15, depending on when your birthday is.
Yeah. I guess a younger reader could read this. I kind of agree with you. Like, I think it kind of teaches you how to read a little bit, which is cool in terms of...
teaches you how to read.
Well, like...
I would hope if you're reading this, you already know how to read.
Well, like with how fiction works, it's very much a... like heavy foreshadowing, a little bit more information each time they do flashbacks. The Satanist outcast who ends up being a nice guy. So I like those kind of aspects of young adult. But yeah, like you say, she's just, she doesn't suffer a lot of consequences. I mean, the mimic definitely screws things up.
Yeah, I mean, but her parents are the ones who suffer the most.
Yeah, they really
do. For
do.
her actions, honestly. I mean, her dad's thrown in jail. His business is pretty much destroyed. Her mom's a fucking wreck. Feels like it's her fault that her daughter died. And then at the end, it's like, oh, well, we're upset, but we're just going to move to a different town and everything will be fine. Like, do you understand how fucking difficult it is to move on top of all this other shit they have to deal with? Like, her parents are the ones who get fucked in this situation, not her. And she's like, oh, I'm not going to stream anymore. And I'm going to just hang out with my friends and play video games offline. I'm like, girl, you need to put on an ad campaign for your dad's business, like get to work, actually do something to like make up for the shit you did.
Damn.
But on the complete other side of that thought, I think that this is a good book to get a younger crowd and maybe just new readers in horror interested in horror, because it's not over the top. It's pretty subtle. It's almost more of like a thriller than horror, I find.
Yeah, that sounds about right. There's really no...
And video games, man.
There's not much violence in this, huh? I mean...
No, not really.
Not really.
But, and not all horror is.
Right.
But it's interesting trying to figure out the line between what is horror and what's not. Like, I just finished reading Witchcraft for Wayward Girls the other day by Grady Hendrix, and it's considered horror. It has witchcraft. I really hesitate calling it horror. His other books are definitely horror. This one, yes, it's like the horror of being a woman, but it's not like, and there's some body horror, I guess. Like, I don't want to go into it because we're not talking about it, so I don't want to give away stuff, but there are pregnant women in it. So you can imagine at some point someone has a baby, and he's pretty graphic about it. And it's well done. And it was a horrible reminder of what my body went through, but it wasn't like horror. So looking at this book, it's interesting because I don't want to call it horror, but how do you not? I don't know. It's a fine line between what is horror and what's not for this book. Not all books. There are definitely some books that are 100% horror. No question about it. I think I see what you mean.
Because like the mimic and the horror game part of it are horror, right?
Yeah, there are
But
elements.
it seems more of a vehicle for having, like, the doppelganger is more of a vehicle for like showing what Viv would be like if she was, I don't know, even worse, or just had no control over her act. It's I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems more like she's like the doppelganger is
A worse version of her.
oh, just a worse. Yeah.
There's a part of me that's like, but how do you get much worse? She's just looser, you know. She just blatantly doesn't give a shit about anyone else. She just doesn't pretend. That's pretty much the only difference I found. Anyway, I think I also would have liked to have seen Viv be called out more on how over the top she was with her online persona thing, because it's like her friends comment, they're like, oh, you're just so obsessed with it. The fact that her friends do point out that like it's eating up her personality, that would be so exhausting to be around that all the time. And I would just constantly be complaining. I'd be like, are you fucking done yet? This girl gets away with so much in this book. It's amazing. So I guess maybe that's what makes it YA, because I'm an adult and she annoys the shit out of me.
I guess
like a teenager would do.
An accurate character, true to form.
And then I think another thing that really bothered me, and I'm not going to really explain because it does give away some stuff, but I just thought towards the end, like, did you really learn nothing about your sister dying? Like, she's still obsessed with just like being an internet presence. She's like, oh, I'm going to fix this with being on Twitch. And it's like, what? You're an idiot.
And I guess if we're talking about like YA and how it can potentially encourage young readers, that maybe that is not, oh no, now I'm being the okay millennial, like, should you really be spending your time online playing video games? But I don't know, really, like, how many of those people make the kind of money she thinks she's going to make? Because her thoughts are like, I'll buy my parents a house and take care of all the financial issues to like redeem myself. And is that just crazy thoughts? Or I don't know, maybe being the top 100 streamer, you like get a little money, but I can't imagine it's what she's thinking. You
can make good money streaming, but it's not easy. And there are a lot of people who try and fail, or not fail, but are, you know, you could maybe make a little money here and there generally, but the top streamers are doing it for a long time. And I don't know. It's just the likelihood. It's like trying to become famous, you know, and in any other sense. And the chances are so slim. But that also brings up a counterpoint. So I'm going to play my own devil's advocate right now, because I'm like, what the hell? Your friends need to tell you to get off the internet and stop being such an asshole. But at the same time, her friends do that a bit. And she's escaping this horrible reality of feeling the guilt of feeling that she killed her sister, right? And so she's starting to come out of this deep depression and playing video games again. And she's getting out of this deep hole a little bit. And her friends are giving her shit for trying to get back into herself. So, you know, it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Don't be a jerk because all you care about is your Twitch streaming. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, well, you're not so depressed. You're starting to do stuff. And it's great to see you coming out of your shell and getting back on the internet and doing the things that you enjoy. So just food for thought.
Yeah. So then would you say that you didn't like the book, or are these just criticisms that you were thinking of while reading?
Well, I'll criticize my favorite book. I mean, I'll criticize any book because that's just what I do. I feel like I was just saying that recently. With The Shining, we were talking about that, how, you know, I talk a bunch of shit about it, but I love Stephen King. I liked this book. I read it twice. So I read it for my book group, and I really enjoyed it. And then I said, oh, I should get Dan to read this for the podcast. And then I listened to it for my second read through to remind myself of the details to do this. And I liked it a little less. And I think that comes up with the reasoning why I was reading it. So just discussing it with people as opposed to critiquing it. I mean, a book club and a podcast are similar, but I went into it with a different mindset. And I think maybe too, just reading it a second time, I'm going to catch more stuff. I liked it less the second time, but I'm still glad that we're doing this, that we're talking about it. What about you? Did you like it?
I liked it more once I put my body into that of a teenager.
Oh my God.
Wait, no. Whoa, hold on. That's not that.
My
okay.
God.
That's not,
that is staying in the podcast. That is 100% staying.
Oh God.
Why don't you rephrase that?
I tried to read this book from the mind of a new reader, not brand new, obviously, but some like this YA as the transition to adult novels. I guess it's
okay. So you mean new in the sense of new to horror or adult fiction?
I guess new to
not new isn't
not
new
a brand
reader.
new reader.
Okay,
no, but like because. So, for example, I was looking up like how young adult horror is doing, and one thing I found that wasn't young adult quite, but apparently the Horror Writers Association Bram Stoker Awards added a category for middle grade horror.
That's so exciting.
I don't know, a couple years ago, I think it was 2022, something like that, which is cool, which is younger than a young adult audience.
Amazing how that works, isn't
it? you really got me this time.
I'm having so much fun, you guys. You have no idea.
But one of the things was the argument was that like a lot of kids, I guess, drop off reading between like 8 to 10, which I guess is middle grade, right?
Yeah.
So that's where that category would be focusing on, like trying to keep people interested through that period leading into the tweenage years. And then this feels like it could then sustain someone who's been reading through that into their early teenage years. So in terms of like being written appropriately for that age, I kind of had to read it from that point of view, because when I first started reading it, it was like such heavy foreshadowing. There was like, okay, Ash the Satanist is actually a good guy. Like those things that I think do work in favor of the young adult category, because you do have to go a little slower. You do have to highlight things a little bit more. So I think it helped when I reset my expectations of what's the demographic that's going to be reading this and what do they need? And they, that stuff is more helpful for an early reader.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But still, kind of like you said, like also it didn't feel like the payoff was that great. It pretty much comes down to like her saying out loud what happened, which is a major confession.
I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to do as an adult to admit to wrongdoing, especially at that level.
Yeah. But like you said, she has a lot more to apologize for. Yes. It seems like I'm going to tell what happened on the day my sister died. Yeah. Like, that's great. But
she made a mistake, but she also has serious personality flaws, and she should be apologizing for the personality flaws.
She should be apologizing for who she is. That's what you need to teach in a YA novel.
Oh, man, when you put it that way. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I probably am looking at too much from an adult perspective. Like, well, what's the lesson here for these young, impressionable minds? Like, it's okay to be an asshole and be on Twitch. Wow. I have to like have the old grumpy voice for that, I guess.
I also struggle with young adult novels because I don't read a whole lot of them. And it's not that the writing is worse. It kind of goes hand in hand with being more obvious about things for a less experienced reader.
Very true.
But there's a part of me that wonders like, okay, this does feel like it's YA written for a YA reader, but is YA also a tag you can put on to something to not have complex writing?
Yeah. I would give this Oh man. Okay, my first read through, I would give it 4 out of 5. My second read through, I'd give it a 3.75 out of 5.
Okay. All right. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I'd say 3 out of 5 screams.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it was kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we're not really, I guess, into the YA thing, huh?
It also kind of made me wonder, like, really like old, like cantankerous parts of us are coming out. Because it's like, okay, this is YA to like kind of ease someone into horror. So I don't know. I guess this comes down to like, what's the value of horror? And I read horror, so I don't. But like, you're training somebody to read stuff that's like really dark and violent.
Hell yeah, man!
But
my kid watched Nightmare Before Christmas when he was 2 years old.
That's terrible. I'm turning into an old person. I'm like, so we're just teaching him to be violent, but that's not true at all. And I think too, what's cool about horror is that, especially for a younger reader, is it's going to be so different from any kind of books you're reading in like an English class, if those exist anymore. I'm not sure.
Yes. English classes still exist, believe it or not.
Okay, that's good.
I might have taken a few in the last couple of years. I don't know. Maybe
perhaps.
1 or 2.
But yeah, you know, it offers a totally different reading and potentially more exciting reading experience than Holden Caulfield. I don't know.
So, while I pull up what I'm reading right now, because this old ass millennial over here can't remember what I ate for breakfast, much less what I'm reading. What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? Well, hold on. I read this.
I read that.
Well, I mean, I read this book for this podcast.
Fair enough.
And then I started playing a game on Switch, and that's, you know, yeah, it's messed up. It's like,
naughty.
It's been really fun, but I can play games or I can read.
Or you can read books about playing games. Oh, wait.
So I don't know. I don't really have any. I mentioned The Fisherman on the last one, which I was reading, and I still loved that book. And besides that, I've read the Summoner's Tale and Canterbury Tales, which is a lot of fun. And also am now reading The Friar's Tale.
Is that horror?
No, that's like, it's Chaucer.
Oh, duh.
I don't know. It's like the Chaucer category.
That's called
medieval fiction?
Literature.
It's great. They're basically like little rap battles in medieval fiction.
Rap or rat?
You know, they're rap battles. At least the ones that I've read, like between
with a P.
Like, yeah, we're like rappers.
Okay.
So
not like plague rats.
No.
Okay.
No, rappers.
Like Watership Down.
No, like the friar tells a tale about a summoner who like sells his soul to the devil, and then the actual summoner is like, screw you, friar, and then tells a story about a corrupt friar. So it's just like people talking mad shit about others through story, and then them responding with their own story that counterattacks. I mean, isn't that a rap battle?
Yeah, it kind of, in that reminds me of The Knight's Tale, which when I was in undergrad, I majored in medieval European history, and one of my professors said that The Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger in it, and they do like rap and stuff and sing in that, is one of the best representations of what medieval culture was like. Obviously modernized, but you know. So yeah, they totally had rap battles back then.
Oh, I forgot. I read a whole nother book too.
Oh my God.
It's not my favorite kind of horror. So I had been reading this book, I don't know, a while ago now.
Wait, now I want to know what your favorite kind of horror is first.
Oh, favorite kind? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, go on.
Let's put a pin in that.
But
this was a book that I had been reading, a book by a horror author who was giving like writing tips for writing horror. And he was constantly name dropping books to check out that he liked to illustrate whatever point he was talking about. So I was looking through my Kindle and found one of those books that were suggested, because most of them are like $2.99, and read through that in like a week. And it was good, but it was also the horror category of a woman gets captured by a man who abuses her. That kind of horror.
Okay.
Which I didn't know. Just going in, it has like a supernatural cover. There's like a face in the clouds, and I just knew that. And it's a woman author, which makes it a little more interesting, I guess. Maybe.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't. Makes it.
I'm just fucking
I don't
with
know.
you.
Less gross than a man writing about a woman being captured and tortured, but it's still this. I don't know. It's something to think about.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
And it was good, but also made me feel kind of icky. I don't know. It was just like.
I love a good icky book.
Yeah.
Icky feeling book.
It had some really cool aspects to it, though, for sure. Yeah, I liked how it mixed reality and supernatural elements. The supernatural elements were pretty subtle and not there a lot of the time. But then when they were there, it was really cool. There's actually a scene with a grieving mother who's like a banshee, and it's a really cool scene. It's so cool that I read
like
it.
An actual banshee?
Yeah, an actual banshee. It's mostly takes place within reality, and then there'll be these like scenes of crazy supernatural elements, which is kind of cool. It also took place in Joshua Tree, which is awesome. But what's not awesome is the man who captures her is a park ranger.
Ooh, that could be a fun read. I bet.
Yeah, it's fun if you like terrible things happening to people.
I mean, I do read horror.
There's cool stuff in it. Nice. I liked it, and it made me feel gross. So I guess that makes it horror.
That's a nice balance. So it might be important to know what this book is called.
Oh, that's a good point. This is called Throwback by Lynn Hortel. And I'd suggested if
you're okay with feeling
you're not
creepy.
queasy.
Yeah, which you would hope reading horror, but
what are you reading?
Well, I just finished a few books. I mentioned earlier, I just finished Witchcraft for Wayward Girls the other day by Grady Hendrix, and I rushed through that one. I wanted to physically read it, but I ended up listening to the audiobook because just recently he came to Portland on his book tour, and my friend Janice convinced me to read the book before going to the book signing. And I'm glad I did. I will probably want to read it again and actually physically read it. And this one was really good. It was really, really well done. His books just somehow are getting better and better. And his talk was amazing. He had a PowerPoint presentation about the history of witchcraft, witches, and women's roles in society, and how this concept was put on them, and then they kind of took it and made it their own thing. And there's no way I would ever be able to do justice to what he said. It was amazing. You can probably find it online in some version. I would assume it's pretty much the same on his whole tour, but it was fabulous. If you ever get a chance to see him on any of his future book tours, I highly recommend it. He was the most entertaining and very friendly guy, very nice. And yeah, so that was fun. That was a great read. I highly recommend that book. I highly recommend anything Grady Hendrix has written, to be honest. And then I also recently finished So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This one was a vampire story. I've read another one of her books, and that one was called Black Sheep, about a girl who escapes a cult. She's also a really good writer. She's a little heavy on the romance for my taste. I like more gore, less love, but everyone's a little different. I did enjoy it. It's kind of like horror light, and it's satirical. If you've seen the cover, it looks like a cocktail glass with blood oozing over it, and it looks more contemporary fiction than horror, and it's a bit of a turnoff for me, and that apparently was the point. She did that on purpose. So brave, very brave of her. She could potentially not get readers who would love the book because a lot of people pick it up based on the cover. But anyway, I also recently read Survive the Night, which is more of a thriller. by Riley Sager. This is another one of those skirting the line between thriller and horror. And I think this one fell on the thriller side. Yeah, and then medieval history. But no one listening to this cares about that.
Okay, so you're doing medieval history and I'm doing medieval fiction.
Yeah.
We are so scholarly.
Well, every once in a while I get the need to read about medieval history because I start to forget things because I'm old. My brain is rotting from all the video games I'm playing. If you're interested in medieval history, I highly recommend Dan Jones. He's a great author. He makes it very readable. It's not so dry and scholarly. He makes it entertaining. So that's
a lot more than I'm reading right now.
What's been on my plate.
Good for you.
Yeah, not to mention all the other books. No, I'm just kidding.
So Amber, what's up next on the chopping blog?
So up next, we're reading your recommendation, The Fisherman by John Langan, which I think you talked about this one in the last podcast and said it was very articulate.
Yeah, that's true. I mentioned it when we talked about Punk Rock Ghost Story and how that I had basically gone scouting and came across this book, The Fisherman, and it's just really good. I mean, I love the writing. I love the story. Everything about it's great, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Sounds like a good read then.
Yeah, I think you'll like it too. There's a character called Der Fisherman. So, I mean, what's there not to like about it?
I already love it. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. It's fun to talk about a book that gets you really excited. So we'll see you next time, and we'll talk about it then. Bye.
Well, if you've made it this far, then we didn't scare you off. Thanks for listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction.
Please rate our podcast, and if you like, follow us on Instagram at Dusk to Dawn Podcast, which is also our Gmail address. Tell us what you liked or didn't like about the show, and let us know if you have any book suggestions. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.